Okay, so now for the main event, I am so happy to introduce our keynote speaker for today. We have Dr. John Burnett joining us. I reached out to John because of his work on building comprehensive school counseling programs. And I found what an energetic and joyous man he is as well. So you can see his bio there, but I'm going to read it as well. John Burnett has been an educator working in public schools for 14 years. He received his bachelor's degree from the University of Memphis, master's in school counseling from Cambridge College, and his Ed.S. in administration from Freed-Hardeman University. John has served as an elementary and middle school counselor, so he gets us. He was a Spanish teacher and assistant principal. Currently, John is a middle school lead counselor, serving the students and the community in Houston, Texas. John was a semifinalist for School Counselor of the Year in 2022 with the Lone Star State School Counselor Association. He was also featured on NBC's The Today Show. John is also a content creator on YouTube and founder of Counseling with Mr. B, LLC. So some of you may have already seen him on social media or online, so you may be familiar with him. Through Counseling with Mr. B, he provides engaging and culturally relevant resources, professional development, and training to educators like us across the globe. John's professional goal is to continue to make a positive impact in the community and the world. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce John to you and to bring him to Pennsylvania today. So thank you, John, for being with us.
Thank you, Amelia. I'm so excited to be here this morning on a Friday, and just hearing all those kind words and inspiring words, it really means a lot, especially from the director. That was just really good. Thank you, Larissa, for sharing those things. And thank you all for having me. I'm really happy to start. All right, so I'm ready to jump right in, and I hope you are too. If you can see my screen, please drop in the chat. Just give me like a thumbs up or a heart or a yes. Just let me know we can see.
Yep, we can see you. Thank you so
Perfect. All
much.
right. Awesome. Let's get started. So I love the theme this year of pulling it all together. And so I thought about that and thinking about puzzle pieces. So from pieces to a plan, building a comprehensive counseling program that works. So that's where we're going to start today. This is how we'll spend our time. I'm going to introduce myself, of course. I'm going to briefly talk about what a comprehensive school counseling plan is. And then I'm going to spend a lot of time on where to begin, how to give resources and tips to create a comprehensive school counseling plan that works for you, your school, and your community. Because I do know that there are so many different things and factors that go into that. And I know it can be a lot and overwhelming to create something from scratch, especially when you think about something so big and so important. But I want to break it down and give you all resources, tips, and make it easier for you. So these are our goals today, and I'm going to touch upon each one of these in different parts of the session. We're going to talk briefly about the ASCA model, the 4 components, which I'm sure you all are aware of. We're going to talk about the academic, social, emotional, and college and career domains from ASCA. I'm going to build upon how to collect and analyze data to assess the student needs and effectiveness of your program. And then we're going to talk about how to create a comprehensive plan, SMART goal oriented, to make sure that you are meeting the needs of your students and your community. So these are our goals, and these are what we're going to do for our session today. But before you get started, make sure you have a pen or notebook or something you can take notes with. Like Amelia mentioned, have your favorite beverage. I've got 2 water bottles over here ready. So make sure you stay hydrated and take care of yourselves. And use the chat feature. If you have questions, you have comments, you have things that you want to share, this is one of the most important parts to me because I love interacting with you all and getting your ideas and your feedback and seeing what works for you and what questions you have. So again, make sure you use the chat feature, please, please, please. But before we get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I appreciate the bio that Amelia shared. My name is John Burnett. I am from Memphis, Tennessee. I moved to Houston about 6 years ago. I've been an elementary school counselor, a middle school counselor. I was a Spanish teacher for a little while, which is how I got my foot in the door for education. It's a funny story with that. I was a bank teller, realized I wanted to change in my career, and I saw an ad in the newspaper for a Spanish teacher position at a school nearby. I applied for it, went in, and thought I was going to have an interview, and immediately the principal was like, "This is your classroom. You start in a week." And I was like, really thrown because I didn't go to school for education, and I didn't have any experience, but I learned a lot on the job. And I really, truly believe that experience shaped who I am as an educator now. Through that, that's when I realized I wanted to be a school counselor. I was doing so much counseling in the classroom when I was an actual teacher that I realized I wanted to go to school and learn how to officially do this. And so again, I was an elementary and middle school counselor. I was an assistant principal for a little bit. I thought I wanted to take a break from counseling. Went to be an assistant principal for 3 years. Quickly realized that it wasn't for me, and I went right back to my love as school counseling. I've never left again, and that's where I am now as the lead counselor at my building. So if you're not familiar with what a lead does, because there's different roles in different campuses and districts. For me, I'm the strategic planner of our campus. I create all the vision and all the mission and all those things that go along with our program, and I manage the other counselors' work. So it's exciting because it helps me to be creative, and it helps me to share my passion for what I do for my community. I also created some social media channels if you're not aware of them and following. Counseling with Mr. B on Instagram and YouTube. I share tips, resources, and how to make school counseling easier for all of us. So I saw that there were so many people in Facebook groups who were really struggling, especially new counselors, because as you all know, there's no instruction manual for educators. So when you get out of grad school, you're pretty much thrown to the fire. And so I wanted to use my experiences, my knowledge to help someone else. And so I also want to share that it was really exciting to see that there are so many students in this program, in this session. So I really hope that you all get something from this. If you're not following me, please follow me on those channels, and you can get more ideas on how to make counseling easier for you. So a little bit about my story. These are some pictures, and I'm going to talk about some of these programs and interventions throughout this session. So I just believe in supporting all schools. I like doing fun stuff. So you can see all the dress up days, like, Tacky Day, Camo Day, like a lot of this is for college and career week, or a Red Ribbon Week. I love presenting. So as you can see in the top left-hand corner, I was on the Today Show, and that was an amazing experience. And then the bottom, this is when I was presenting at the Lone Star School Counselors Association. I was talking about how to use tech and social media in your program. And I'm going to touch a little bit about that too, just because I want to see if anybody's interested in that and building that in your program. But this is me, and I'm excited to share with you all the amazing things that we can do as school counselors to impact lives. But before we get started, drop in the chat before we start about talking about a comprehensive school counseling program. Which one of these is you? Are you A, super excited, B, kind of nervous, just a little bit, worried, overwhelmed, stressed, C, like I'm just kind of curious, and I don't know where I'm going to go with this. And be honest, because I really want to see where you are with this. So hopefully at the end, your perception changes. Okay, I see some A's, I see some B's. Trust me, it's the time of the year where I can identify with B. There's a lot going on. We're in master schedule season right now, and so it's a lot going on. Awesome. Well, hopefully we can turn some of those B's and C's into an A. But one of my biggest things before we get started, my suggestion to you, I'm going to go over a lot of different things in this session. The way I designed it is for multiple levels, different learners. So there's beginners, intermediate, and those experts. So my goal is for you to hear something and grab something that you can use. But don't try to do everything all at once. Oh, awesome. Awesome, Chelsea. Thank you. Don't try to do everything all at once. Pace yourself. Remember, building a program is between 1 and 3 years. So you got to start from the ground up. The second year is kind of like okay, what can I revise? And the third year, you should be rocking it out. But the biggest thing, pick 1 to 3 things from today's session to try. You're going to hear a lot of amazing things, I know, But in order not to get overwhelmed or stressed, try to just pick 1 or 3 things that you can identify and say, I'm going to do that starting now, and I'm going to build on it and work later. Because one thing that I always feel when I go to conferences, I hear everything, all these amazing ideas, and then I get home and I'm like, okay, now I don't know what I want to do. I'm overwhelmed. It was exciting in the moment, but I don't know where to start, and it's just too much, and I don't do anything at all. And so I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. So again, don't try to do everything that you hear today. Pick 1 or 3 things that you can really hone in on and focus, refine, and then continually add more to it. And then that's going to help you get the most out of this session today and your other sessions that you're experiencing. So let's talk about what is a comprehensive school counseling program before we get started about how to build one out and how to implement it. And I'm going to briefly talk about this. The big thing I want you to walk away with is that comprehensive doesn't have to be confusing. It doesn't have to be complicated. One of the biggest lessons that I learned was that you get to decide, create, and implement your program. So we're going to talk about the data. We're going to talk about how to build it out, but it's going to be different based on who you are as a person, what you want to focus on, what your school campus needs. Like, there's so many different ways to approach this. And so I don't want you to feel like it has to be one extra thing that we have to do, something that's complicated, that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of moving pieces. It doesn't have to be that way. There's so many ways that you can approach this, and I want to make sure that each one of you walks away with something different. So one of the big ideas that I thought is counseling isn't cookie cutter. There's not one right way to do anything. Every school, every district, every community is all different. Every grade level is different. And so some of you all may be talking about, what you're doing on your campus, and you may be talking with other school counselors in your district or nearby areas, and somebody's doing something different. And that's okay. But every grade band is different too. So what works for elementary can work for middle, and it can work for high school, or there's things that you might have to revise. And keep in mind that your first year, you're going to learn a lot. And it may not necessarily be your first year as a school counselor. It may mean your first year revising your school counseling program. Either way, you're going to learn a lot, and that's okay. A lot of this is trial and error. So again, if you are excited and ready to jump in and start your comprehensive school counseling program or even refine it, type excited in the chat. And see, I put it all in caps. I'm excited too. Awesome. Thank y'all. So touching briefly upon the 3 domains, we all know these: the academics, the social emotional piece, or the character development. There's so many different ways to word that now because that phrase can bring a lot of confusion with some people outside of education. So I always call it character development or social emotional learning. And then college and career readiness. So we're going to talk about all 3 of these within the programs and the ideas that we're going to talk about in this session. All right, so let's talk about your role, our role, how we help, and how we create our program. So we all know that part of your program, there's 4 parts, and we're not going to go into detail with this one specifically. I'm just going to kindly briefly mention it because there's other parts that I want to focus more on just so you have a more broad scope of what to do. But there's the define section. This is the professional standards that we have as school counselors that ASCA creates. And if you go on schoolcounselor.org, you can get a better idea of these. We have our mindsets and our behaviors for student success. And I link those in there. So after this program, I'm going to share a link of resources from this. So again, I want you to take notes, but I am going to share with the leaders of this Pennsylvania program, the School Counseling Association. I'm going to share like resources for you all. So there's links you can click on so you can go back to it later on. So again, take notes, but I am going to share some resources with you all. The standards are here. You can use these to create your program, or if you want to get ideas. So the mindset standards, the learning strategies, belief in the development of the whole child, the sense of acceptance, respect, and support. So what I look at when I look at this is I'm not just reading these, I'm taking what ASCA says and I'm creating lessons based on this. For example, creating lessons on acceptance, respect, and inclusion. That's one idea. So if you are stuck and you don't even know where to start, look at the standards. Look at the success criteria, the behavior standards for students, and you can create lessons on this. But again, I'm just going to briefly mention that because you can look over that later, and that could be a whole nother session all on its own. I want to spend a little bit of time on the manage part. So this is where you have your vision, your mission, your data, your action plans, your calendar, all of those things roll into one. And we're not going to talk about all of these. I want to focus on the ones that are going to help you start your comprehensive school counseling program. So you start with your mission and vision. That's a great idea to start with it. For example, one of the old schools that I was working in, our mission and vision was making sure that every student had an idea for college and career, military, and that they were ready for these 21st century learners. And so I could take that and I could create lessons based on that, our mission and vision. You want to look at your school improvement plan. So hopefully your school leaders will share this with you. Every year they have a plan and goals that they want to approach to make their community and school better. That's a great way to start your comprehensive school counseling program, is looking at your missions, your school counseling, or your school's mission and improvement plan. Then you want to look at your needs assessment. You want to create a scope and sequence, and then action plan with your admin so they are aware of everything that's going on. But first, let's start about where to start. You want to set some goals. And we all know what SMART goals are, so I'm going to give you some examples of how to set goals for your comprehensive school counseling program based on goals that I've used before. So this is called an annual agreement. ASCA has a version of this on schoolcounselor.org, where it's basically you talk about your program goals, how you're going to meet those needs, what areas you're going to focus on, and then it goes into other detail of how you're going to get it done. So for example, one of the goals that I used a couple years ago is the counselor will use Tableau data. Tableau is our tracking data system to monitor and decrease rules violation referrals by 10%. So I noticed that one year we had it wasn't a bad school at all. We didn't have a whole lot of referrals. It was maybe 200 referrals for a large elementary school, 1,200 students, which is not bad at all for a whole school year. But I wanted to approach that from a standpoint of how can I make the school better from the school counseling program? So reducing those rules violations. So I was looking at the rules violations referrals and things that students were getting in trouble for. And I was like, okay, well, how can I support this? So if I see that a lot of students are getting in trouble for hitting an inappropriate contact or horseplay, I can take that and turn that into one of my school counseling goals. And so the action plan was I was going to create leadership groups based on that data. And what that looks like is I will identify some of the top flyers that got a lot of rules violations referrals, include them in a small group. I met with them and we did leadership. We talked about how to be a leader on the campus, how to make sure you're following directions and rules and make sure you're happy. It was a whole program and it really worked. And it did reduce the rules violations referrals for that next school year. So that's what I mean when I say take your data, look at your school improvement plan, look at what's going on from your academic data, your test scores, your discipline data, all those type of things, and create programs. And after you've done that, you can create a year at a glance. ASCA has a template for this too. The way that I approached it is every month, I outlined the events that I wanted to host, the trainings that I wanted to share for staff and for the families, specific action items that I had to get done for that month, and then other things like holidays and things like that. For example, I'll talk about October. So this is small, and I'll give you a template of this if you don't have one. So that's one of the things that I include in the resources. But in October is a busy month. It's one of my favorites because there's so many things that are going on. You've got Red Ribbon Week, you've got Bully Prevention Month, you've got Mental Illness Awareness Week. There's so many things that you can create lessons and programs from. So I created a list of all the events, the trainings that I had to host for that month, the bully prevention training for the families. I hosted that, brought them in, talked to them briefly about what bullying is, how to identify it, and how to reach out for support. I gave that same presentation to the students in a condensed version and the teachers. And then I shared a needs assessment. That's going to be the biggest thing. And that's the first lesson that I learned my first year. I went in so excited as my first year as a school counselor. And I think, this is what I think the students need. And so I just shared lessons and things that I felt that they needed, and they didn't really resonate with it. And so that second year, or midway through, honestly, I sent out a needs assessment. I was like, okay, well, now I need to revamp my program and figure out what is it the students actually want, because I can't determine that. It has to be based on them. So you send out a needs assessment, and then that's how you create your program too. But data doesn't have to be one of those scary words. It can be, because there's so many different ways to approach data and be data informed. But I'm gonna give you a very simple way to use data. Before I start, I share this data with our students, our staff, and the teachers in the community, the school that we work in. But 31.9% of adolescents have an anxiety disorder. So if you want to get buy-in from your teachers and you're creating a new program and they're like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to teach SEL, that's not what I went to school for. If your teachers are sharing all those things, this is a way to get them on board and get buy-in. So you realistically share data and say, hey, Miss Smith, let's say 30% of your class could be diagnosed with or have an anxiety disorder that's undiagnosed and you may not even know it. And you break it down realistically. So if you got a class of 30 and 30% have or could have an anxiety disorder, that's 9 kids out of your group already. And so it make it real for them so they see, well, hey, Miss Smith, so now if you know that this is such a huge problem or dilemma, share these coping skills. Teach these deep breathing exercises that I'm sharing with you. I want you to feel comfortable sharing it and you learn from it too. And that's how you get them on board. Another way that I use data was I manage our school's Instagram accounts on top of handling my own social media accounts. And I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me, I found ways to make it work. And one day I sent out a poll to the students on Instagram on the stories, and I asked them, what do you want to know more about? Anxiety, depression, self-esteem, gossip, and drama. And a lot of students, 21%, stated that they wanted to know more about anxiety, but 43% wanted to know more about depression. So I sent this out in April, and I was like, okay, we got so many students on our campus, 900 students, and 21% are experiencing anxiety. 43% are experiencing depression. That's a lot. What can I do as a counselor to create an intervention or a program for them? So I created a mental health affair. And within that mental health fair, it was an after-school event. I asked the teachers if they wanted to participate. It was a voluntary thing. And I actually had a big number because even though it was in May, when after testing was done and people are tired, because the way I presented this, there were so many people who were excited to help the teachers. And so after school, we had some teachers who were doing like quick interventions, or for yoga, we had somebody from the community come in and do yoga. One of the teachers did a positive affirmation station, and they just printed some stuff off Teachers Pay Teachers and showed students how to use positive affirmations. Some teachers did deep breathing stations. We had a therapy dog come in from the community. We had Girls on the Run come in and talk about like how to support mental health and physical fitness. And we just had so many different like boosts that students were able to rotate around and get ideas from. And it was a huge success. The families enjoyed it. The students enjoyed it. And it didn't really take a lot to plan, to be honest, because all I did was presented the idea. I gave the teachers resources, or if they needed them, like for yoga or positive affirmations, and they kind of ran with it. And it was a really, really fun event. And if you want to host something similar to that, you can do that too. And if you want any ideas, I have a video on my channel where I outline specifically what you do. So again, if you want to host that event or something similar, it doesn't have to be in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. You could do it in March next year for SEL Day. So there's so many different ways to approach that. But now I want to talk about the delivery section. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back because there was something I wanted to skip over. So there is a data tool. If you haven't used WooClap before, WooClap is absolutely amazing. So I love using new technology features. And if you go on WooClap, it's free. You can set up like surveys, pre and post tests, needs assessments, and it's a really fun way to do that and interactive. You can even do it for icebreakers for your staff or your students. So here's an example. There's a link on here. This is the old one that I did. You can share out a survey and you can do like a little map here, a cloud, where you ask a question. And this is one of the questions I asked. When you think about your first year, what words or phrases come to mind? And then your participants will share out things and it creates this cute little word map. And you can use that for your data, or you can use it as a fun icebreaker or tool. So again, I put it in the chat. It's wooclap.com. It's free. You can ask questions. You can set up pre and post tests. There's so many different ways to use technology to where you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to use paper and pencil unless you choose to. I also use Google Forms and Microsoft Forms to send out needs assessments and surveys, and that's a great way to get some feedback after you do a classroom counseling lesson or a small group and see if your students are invested and they learn something from it. All right, so let's talk about the delivery part. This is one of my favorites because this is when we're gonna give you a lot of resources, a lot of different ideas to do interventions for student support, for small groups, individual counseling sessions, for classroom counseling lessons, all of those things. So we're gonna talk about the delivery part. This is one of my favorite parts. This is where you actually go in and do the work. So we already started with the planning. We got the needs assessments done. We set out a plan, a scope and sequence, a year at a glance. Now let's talk about how we're actually going to have to deliver the programs and events that we talked about, the things that were based on data. So we already talked about a year at a glance. If you're not aware, I love this tool, the ASCA Awareness Calendar. It's an amazing, amazing tool to help you create your scope and sequence. And then we're going to talk a little bit about a SEL curriculum if you don't have one. Some districts, some schools have already purchased a SEL curriculum that they use, and sometimes you don't. I worked in schools where they had SEL curriculum that they purchased, and I've worked in some where I had to create lessons and everything from scratch. So I'm going to talk to you more so about if you have to create things from scratch. So this is a tool that I use, the ASCA Awareness Calendar. Every month I go in and I look at, it can be overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie, there's so many different things here. There's events for monthly, weekly, and daily events. And I wouldn't focus on all of this. Again, I would say pick 2 to 3 events that you really wanna hone in on and create lessons for. So in April is, what is one I usually do in Community Service Month, alcohol awareness, you can focus in on that. There's which one is Autism Awareness Day? That's another one we usually focus on in April. And you create things with it. I don't do a whole lot in April because April is usually our testing season. So with this, I do focus more on testing for April, which is what we're actually doing now, getting ready to start. And we know these tiered interventions. We talk about the tier 3, that's the outside referrals, the crisis intervention, reaching out to therapists and other people in the community. We're going to talk about the small groups for the tier 1, the individual counseling, the check-in and check-out. Those are some examples. The tier 1 lessons, those are the classroom counseling lessons. That's for what everybody gets. The individual planning, the school-wide events, all of those things. So here's how I approach it. So again, I was at a school at this point where we didn't have a curriculum that we used, so I had to create things from my own. And this is what I did. And this is what I would encourage you to do if you're in that same boat. Don't make it something very complicated. For where I was at, the teachers had to actually share the lessons. I was in middle school at that point. I didn't go in and teach classroom counseling lessons. What I would do is I would create them. The teachers would have to teach them. But again, you want to get the buy-in and you want to make it easy for them. So I made quick things that they could do. This part was optional. On Fridays, I gave this to them and I want them to have something to do because we noticed that after lunchtime, it was like really chaotic on our campus. The students were it took a long time to get them refocused. And I gave the teachers some quick little things that they could do before they start their lesson. So I've created this whole presentation, and each one of these took between 2 to 5 minutes, and I gave them like deep breathing exercises, different examples of positive affirmations and quick little activities that they could do where it wasn't something that they need materials for. It was literally something that the teacher could run through really quickly, show a video, do an example, and teach them that. So here's an example of one that I did. And this is literally the lesson right here. It was so simple. I gave them this slide and told them, have their students pick a positive affirmation, have them write it down, have them like put it in their notebook, or even do a journal entry about it for ELA. There's so many cross content ways that you can approach this. I even had the teachers tell them, put your positive affirmation on the board. Tell your students why you chose that one and how it's going to help support you. Again, this took a couple minutes to create this one slide, send it out, and it's a tier 1 thing for the whole school, and it's doing what you need to do as a school counselor in a way that is not intrusive to the teacher's time, and it's really something simple. So again, I created these, I sent them out on top of the lessons that I was already doing. This was an additional layer of support. And if you're looking for video ideas, so if you want to do like a video, send out a video for your teachers and do like some discussion questions, that's another easy way to do it. One of my favorites is you go on YouTube and search Rocket Kids. Rocket Kids has some of the absolute best character development of videos, and they're simple. The kids are the ones who actually present this. So they're students and children who are actually sharing lessons. Like, for example, there's one that I just did recently where it's 5 different ways of how self-discipline. And I shared that out with the teachers. The students watched it. I had some discussion questions at the end, and that's a quick lesson right there. So again, Rocket Kids is an amazing one. Lessons for SEL is another one, and these are free. So what I'm going to share with you in this whole session, that all are free examples. Nothing that you have to pay for. So if you're having trouble from getting buy-in from teachers, okay, yes, Heather, that's a great question. So what I do, there's 2 ways to approach that. At the very beginning of the school year, I have a, like when we're doing in-service, I do a whole group faculty meeting where I talk about the plan for SEL, the plan for addressing intervention. I share these ideas, I model it for them. I even do it with them. I have them be the students and I'm the teacher, and I get the buy-in that way. Additionally, I share data with them, like what I mentioned with the anxiety. I share that, like quotes like that, or statistics, like where I share like 30% of students have an anxiety disorder. If you see this, how can we support them? So make it relevant for them. And then if you have teachers who are still struggling, do one-on-one meetings with them. Sit down with them and ask them, what is their comfort level? What is their pain points? Again, give them some additional support. Those are ways to get buy-in from teachers. But the big thing is, I also tell them, hey, if you teach students mindfulness and deep breathing, that can increase their focus, that increases their productivity. And who doesn't want students who are focused and productive in class? So when you share the benefits of it, it gets teachers to say, okay, that's when that light bulb comes off and goes off and they say, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I need help if I need help. So that's a good question. Another way that you can do character lessons is, if you don't have a curriculum, is you can do monthly character traits. What I've done, this is all mapped out. This is what one of my previous districts used. So for September, we focus on respect. So I create 4 lessons on respect for the month of September. The first one is usually an introduction lesson talking about what respect is. The second lesson is like, these are examples of how to show respect. And then we have interactive ways to show respect to like all different things. There's many different ways to approach this, but that's easy right then and there. If you don't have a curriculum, you can create a whole scope and sequence for your whole year based on character traits. Again, you can find videos related to it. You can do interactive activities with it. There's so many different ways to do this, to where if you don't have a SEL curriculum that you can do. And then to tie it all together, you can have student of the month based on your character traits, which is what I do. So if you want to start a student of your month program at your campus, like where it's simple, it's easy, and it's not a heavy lift, there's a video that I have on YouTube where you talk about how I create student of the month, to where we identify, we share, like we celebrate those students. I even create like a slideshow video that I share for the whole school, like where I take pictures of the winners and encourage those other students to be able to, strive for it the next month. And if you're having trouble with any of those things, you can use AI to help you like get ideas. For example, go on ChatGPT and say, I am a middle school counselor and our focus for this month is respect. Create 4 lessons for me for respect, or give me ideas for interactive icebreakers. And then ChatGPT or AI can help you create all those things, and you can go in and you don't have to do anything but like rehearse it and share it with your teachers. Has anybody in here ever felt like this? This is actually one of my favorite memes. This is fine. So when you think about student support, and there's so many different little fires you're putting out, like you get to school and you have your whole day planned out. And like me, I write down like my to-do list for that day. And you're thinking that, hey, I'm gonna get so much done, and then a crisis happens. Or something like where a teacher calls you and say they need you because a student is doing this, or a teacher puts another student out of class and they send them directly to the counselor's office. This literally, I love this meme because it's like literally you're sitting there, this is fine. So I'm going to share what I do when you have those situations, like what teachers are putting students out of the class or sending them directly to you without doing things to help beforehand. There's three different ideas that I've done. Creating a virtual calming corner. So I went on Google Sites and I created this on the corner on the screen here. And I created a very simple virtual calming corner. Now, I'm not going to lie, it took a lot of time to do this. I did it over the summer. It took about maybe 2 days because I'm that thorough with it. But there's a link on here where for mindfulness, I had a session for like inspirational things, for body movement. And each one of these had, like when you click on it, there was different resources, there were different videos for the teachers. So what I would do is we're on a campus where the students had their own computers. And if I wasn't able to meet with a student, if they were having like a mild crisis, not anything huge, I would tell the teacher, have the student go on the virtual calming corner, the counseling care corner, have them pick an intervention that they can do, like a deep breathing exercise they can watch or something like that, until I can get to them later on that day. And this was a way to kind of help give the teachers agency, give them a way to support them in the classroom, because I asked them to create like a different corner in their room, like a calming corner. And this was a big way to help me manage some of the things that I needed. And after that student still needs support, of course, I was going to check in with them. But this was the first layer of doing things. And I use this when they would come in my office too. So I would put on like a visual exercise. One of my favorites was there's a YouTube video where it's the ocean and like fish are swimming around, and it has some calming music. And we play that in the background. The student is watching it, and I have them go over the mindfulness things, some deep breathing exercises, some sensory issue like things, all those. Another thing you can do is if you don't want to create a virtual calming corner because it takes a lot of time, you can share a monthly newsletter or a weekly newsletter where you give tips, tricks, and different things that your teachers can do and your students can do. Or, and I'm going to show you some examples of these in just a minute. Or if you're comfortable using social media for your school, create an Instagram or a TikTok or a Twitter where you share different resources and ideas. There's so many different ways to approach it. So I'm going to give you some examples by each Ask a Domain. So I do this during Mental Health Awareness Month, but I actually do this throughout the year too. So you can pick theme days. Monday is Mindful Monday, Tuesday is Tip Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Thoughtful Thursday, Fun Friday. You don't have to do all 5 of these. In fact, I would say don't do all 5 because it can get overwhelming. Imagine if you're doing something like this every single day for all school year. It can, trust me, it will get overwhelming. If you want to start small, pick 1 day or 2 days. One of the biggest ones that I use is Tip Tuesday. And let me tell you how I use Tip Tuesday. But first, let me go through all of them. So deep breathing exercises, you can use those on Monday for Mindful Monday, and that's part of the SEL Ask a Domain. So again, deep breathing exercises, that's easy. Share every Monday, share a different deep breathing exercise. Elevator breathing, that's one of my favorites. Bunny breathing, because it gets the students laughing and comfortable. Crazy eights, there's so many different ways. How to stand up to bullies, that could be SEL for Tip Tuesday. So for October, Bullying Prevention Month, share different ways that students can stand up to bullies, how to identify bullying, how to be how not to be a bystander, how to be an upstander, like how to help people. Those are different tips that you can share. And you can share these newsletters out with your families too. How to decrease test anxiety. That's big now in April for us. State testing is coming up. It's literally in 3 weeks. So I'm going to start sharing like how to decrease test anxiety. That's for academics domain, and it could be for Wellness Wednesday, or it could be for Tip Tuesday. For colleges, for high schools, how to apply for scholarships. Do I have any high school counselors in the room? This can be for them too. All of these tips can be for any grade level, elementary, middle, or high school. But specifically college and career tips, that could be Tip Tuesday. These are different ways that you can send out newsletters. You can use these for social media channels. And these are just simple ways that where you're not going, it's not a heavy lift. You're just finding a couple tips and sending out a flyer. You can use Canva and create this. Here's some other high school specific ideas. I know I don't have experience in high school. You know, I'm a middle school and elementary school counselor. That's my background. And so I always wanted to share something that for high school, because that was some feedback that I've gotten in a previous session, is that I didn't have enough resources for high school and ideas. So if any high school counselors in here, these are ideas where you can do this same thing. Scholarship and FAFSA, sharing tips about that. Teen Violence and Dating Awareness Month, which is in February, sharing ideas for that. How to succeed in college. So if you have those juniors or seniors, you got to show them ways to be successful in school. And just different ways, workshops that you can do, mental health supports, all those things. So step one, in order to do all that, gather your resources. What I do is I go on Teachers Pay Teachers and find some free or inexpensive deep breathing exercises, coping skills, feeling charts, I statements, negative thought stopping, positive affirmations, all those things. And I put them in my little rolling cart that I got from Michael's. So that when students come in, I'm ready for them and I can share things with them. I teach them the skill. Sometimes it's great to just sit down and have a conversation with a student and just talk to them. But a lot of times they need something that they can walk away with, like a worksheet or some practice that they can do. So these are some of the things that I do, and this will help you get ready. And here are some individual counseling videos that I have. If you have some time, I know time is a factor right now, but go back and watch these. In the top left-hand corner, I give an idea on how to help students who are having panic attacks. 5 to 10-minute exercises you can do for individual counseling sessions that are amazing for panic attacks, worry, stress, all those things. I know I'm not the only one who has students randomly coming in and saying they're having panic attacks. This is a great video to help figure out how to support those students in the moment. And again, it's a 5 to 10-minute intervention. It's not a heavy lift, and I walk you through step by step on how to do that. In the bottom left-hand corner, do I have any counselors in here who have students who are not motivated, who are apathetic, or not coming to school, attendance issues? This is a great video for that, on how to increase their motivation and get buy-in from them and increase their efficacy. So again, that's another 5 to 10-minute activity that you can do. And trust me, I'm going to give you like a sample of what it is, and you're going to be like, oh, wow, I never thought about doing it that way. It's creating vision boards. That vision board, and I've actually done this with students, it gets them excited. It gives them something to look forward to when they think about their future. Because a lot of our students, whether they're in elementary, middle, or high school, are short-sighted. They don't see what's going to happen 5 to 10 years in the future. And a lot of that shapes their behaviors. So if you show them a vision board, have them create a vision board for the things that they want to do for their life, it helps them to put things in perspective. So again, watch that video. I walk you step by step on how to create a vision board and how it connects to motivation. Top right-hand corner, grief. Do I have any counselors here who have students or even staff who are experiencing grief, or even yourself, honestly? Last February, I lost my mother, and I'm still going through the grieving process. And so these are things that can help your students, your staff, and yourself. So I gave 5 different ways to help students with grief. Very out of the box ideas. You know, there's some things that we know to do for grief, like the stages of grief, but that doesn't work for every student. So I give other ideas. So again, if you're having students who are experiencing grief and you don't know how to handle it, because grief is not my strongest point when it comes to like doing counseling things. I had to learn over the year, and I went to an amazing session with Clear Hope Counseling, one of our community partners, and they gave me some ideas for grief. And I want to share those with you all. How to build self-esteem. I had students come in one day. She told me her mom called her ugly and stupid and all these ugly terms every morning, and she was having a hard time functioning. And so this is how you can support those students who have low self-esteem. So now let's talk briefly about small groups. So that was individual counseling. So again, get your resources, find your ideas, get to work. And now let's talk about small groups. These are some of the small groups that I've hosted over the years. Emotion controllers, I changed the name. It used to be anger management. I like emotion controllers now. It sounds a lot better. Family changes, and again, I changed the name from that because it used to be banana splits, but I got to the point where I didn't really like the way that was communicated. I didn't like the message that it sent, so I changed the family changes. So students who have incarcerated families, who have broken homes, divorce, all those things. Anxiety, stress, depression, self-confidence, college readiness. Like these are some of the small groups that I've hosted over the years. And these are some resources. So if you're a newer counselor or trying to figure out how to do small groups, because it can get overwhelming too, especially trying to find the time in the year to do small groups. I share different resources on how to create your groups, how to name them, how to pick students, all the logistical pieces of it, how to have successful small groups. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, what are some ideas that you can do for simple lunch bunch groups? I give you 8 different strategies for doing lunch bunches where it's not a heavy lift. There are things that you can do where you don't have to create a whole lot of resources or do a lot of things to do, but you're still having something that's impactful. So again, these are some examples of videos you can use get ideas for small groups, and I'll share these with you all in the resource section that I share later. And the big one is PBIS World. If you've never seen this, go on it for Tier 3, Tier 1, and Tier 2 interventions, and you can click on each one of these, and it gives you so many different resources. If you want to create a behavior plan for a student, there's some that are already done. Why reinvent the wheel? It has tips and strategies for disruptive students, hyperactive students, students who are name calling, all of these different things to where you don't have to like make stuff on your own. You can go find what's available and tweak it and make it work for you. So if you've never heard of PBIS World, again, I'll put the links on the resource tracker that I'm going to give and share out with you all. And now let's talk about some other resources that can help you create your program. Mental Health Awareness Month, there's a free tool for from MHA that I use. You can use this not just for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is coming up in May, but you can use this throughout the year. This is how you use it. You can go download their free toolkits every year. Last year, there's ones that I like, years that I like a little bit more. I think this one is from 2021, where you go in and then it has actual toolkits. So this one specifically is how to deal with anger and frustration. As you can see, it has tips for coping with anger. It has fast facts. Remember when I was talking about creating newsletters or social media, like different things like for your Instagram or your school's Twitter or things like that? This is what you can use. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or create stuff on your own. Go use these toolkits for Mental Health Awareness Month from MHA, and you can actually do this on your own. Again, search Mental Health America, go to their toolkits, and they have them by year, and you can scroll through, and they're free. You download them, scroll through them, and you can present these to your students, your staff, and your community. That's one resource, and I use this a lot. And it has a lot of things. It has anger, they have grief resources, they have anything that you can think of for mental health. This works really well for high school and middle school, but it could also work for elementary if you maybe change the language a little bit or make it more friendly for like kindergarten and first grade, because you have to be able to differentiate. Another one that I use is the Random Acts of Kindness. So I don't just use this in February for Random Acts of Kindness. They have kindness ideas. They have whole lesson plans for you all for all grade bands, kindergarten through 12th grade. They have quotes. They have different icebreakers. They have little activities. You can use these for your small groups, these activities and icebreakers. You can use these for your staff. You can use these for your classroom counseling lesson. They have so many different things. Like they have a kindness bingo. They've got like certificates that you can hand out. There's so many amazing resources on Random Acts of Kindness Foundation that you can use. Another good one is Erica's Lighthouse for mental health resources, and it's free. You just go in and sign up for a free account, and they have presentations that you can get. They have different presentations. They have like different ideas for interventions, and they're free. Like you can use that. So again, Erica's Lighthouse. And again, I'll give you the links to all of these if you're not using them. Another amazing one that my district uses that is a free SEL curriculum. Free, y'all. Remember what I told you? In this presentation, I'm giving you free ideas. Overcoming obstacles. I love overcoming obstacles. It has for interventions for elementary, middle, and high school. And it has whole groups that you can do small groups with. See right here. Confidence building. They have 6 lessons here. They have like worksheets you can print out. They have I'm sorry, y'all. There's a lot going on my street. I don't know if y'all can hear that background noise. I'm sorry. They've got confidence building. So they've got 6 lessons. They've got presentations. They've got little worksheets that you can print out. They have communication, decision making. They've got all different types of things that you can do. You can use these for your classroom counseling lessons. You can use these for your small groups. You can use these for your elementary sessions, your individual counseling sessions, all of that. And again, this is free. I just picked to show you for an example the middle school portion, but they have them for high school and elementary. And now let's talk a little bit about events. Remember, your classroom, a comprehensive program doesn't have to be cookie cutter. It works for you. Make it work for you and your campus. You decide what your goals are. You decide what you're going to approach and how you're going to approach it. So I talked a lot about at the SEL portion. I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the academic side, because that's the side that is really important too. So I'm a middle school counselor. Right now we're doing course selection. We're doing master schedule planning. I'm helping individually walking with students and helping them build out their schedule for next school year. I'll be the 8th grade counselor next year. And so I've had to literally talk to students about getting ready for high school, those high school credit courses, like how to build out your schedule for successfully. Those are different ways that you can do individual academic planning. You can take students on field trips. I took my students to the University of Houston at the end of the year for a field trip, and they really loved it. To get them ready for college and career, just get them excited about college. These are my 8th graders, and I took them on a field trip. Right here, this next picture is we do fifth grade transition in February. So where the 5th graders come over to our middle school and we teach them, we get them prepared for middle school, we get them excited. So I call them in and I share the orchestra performances, the band, we just get them ready for fine arts and get them excited about those things. And so that's another academic part. Career day, and high school planning, and then the graduation walk. So every year the seniors, our high school is literally right next door to our middle school. It's walking distance. And so the high school seniors come over and they walk with their cap and gown and they do a whole parade throughout the school. That's a simple thing. If you've never done it, our kids love it. They go in the hallway, and when the seniors walk by, they cheer at them, they clap for them. That's an easy thing to plan. You just coordinate it with your high school. And then career day, of course. Career day we usually do in October now. We do it in October now. We invite people from the community, and it's a big lift. There's a lot that goes into career day, but it's absolutely amazing. We have so many people who come from the community, or you can recruit your parents and your families, and they can share quick things about their career with your students. And it's just fun. Last year we had somebody from the community. She had her own business, and she's an entrepreneur, and she creates balloon decorations. And so she made the students like little balloon animals, and she talked to them about how to be a entrepreneur and things like that. So I have a video on career day. And last part before we get to our Q&A, because I want you all to be able to ask some amazing questions. I know I presented a lot of information. I want you to be able to ask questions. But after you've done your interventions, after you plan out everything, you have to assess it some type of way. So where you give a mid-year or an end-of-the-year evaluation, there's areas of growth that you come from. And it can be simple. You can share out a couple questions. Like, for example, these are some that I share out. And I have them do like a Likert skill. Counseling lessons were helpful and relevant to students' needs. So this is what I'm asking the teachers. Referred students use knowledge and skills learned in session at school. Students referred by the counselor were seen in a timely manner. And I get that feedback from the teachers. Now I'm going to give you some advice. Feedback can be difficult at times. It can be hard to hear, especially when something doesn't go well and you think that it does. But don't take feedback personally. It's meant to help you grow and build out your program and support your students in the best way. And so once you take a step back and don't look at feedback as an attack and look at it as a tool to help you grow and help your students grow, it's going to help you be better. Of course, you can create an advisory committee. So again, these are a lot of ideas that I'm not going to have a lot of time to go over, but these are just ideas. And some of these things are whole sessions all on their own. But I'll just, the purpose of this session, I wanted to give you all different ways, tips, and resources to do and create your school counseling program to make it work. But again, this always assess your program. Mid-year, end of year, after some classroom counseling lessons, or after individual sessions, or even small groups. Send them out to your students, your community, your teachers. Get that feedback, show the results. And last thing that I'm going to talk about before we do Q&A is at the end of the year, I share my data with the teachers. So this is an example of my data from last year. I broke it down to how many students came into my office individually, and this is just a small portion of my data. These are how many students I saw for academic needs and SEL. Look at how many students that I saw for SEL last year for different things. And look at the breakdown. 44% of my time for individual counseling sessions alone was SEL related. And you all, I'm sure you all can understand that. This is helpful because not only does it show your teachers what you do and how you support them, but it's also a great way to advocate for yourself, especially with all the things that are going on in the world right now in the world of school counseling. And so it can be daunting to keep track of all of your data, but it's very helpful in the end. So let's wrap up some tips before we do our Q&A. In order to create your comprehensive school counseling program, I broke down this session into 5 easy steps. 1, use your data to create and plan your goals. And we talked about how to do that. 2, gather your resources for responsive services for individual, small group, classroom counseling lessons. 3, create your scope and sequence or a year at a glance or whatever plan you want to do. Like actually put it on paper or put it in your computer. 4, assess your progress. 5, revamp, revise, and keep it going. And when I share the resources out from this presentation, I'm going to give you all these quick tips too, just so you can have it and you can go back and refer back to it. Because again, we didn't get a lot of time to spend on some of these. I'm going to share this with you and you can go back and research it, especially like the overcoming obstacles or Erica's Lighthouse, like the different resources that I shared. You'll have to go through and look at them on your own, but you'll be able to go through that. Last way to connect with me, I know I gave you my social media channels, Counseling with Mr. B, but I also have a podcast that I created. So I have a YouTube channel and I just recently started a podcast. And the reason I started the podcast is I wanted people to have a different way to get ideas. So because some people drive in the morning on their commute and they like to listen to different things or they're working out. And this is a great way. Some people don't like watching videos, but if you want to listen to things while you're at the gym or at the grocery store, I have a podcast where I share the same tips, resources, and ideas that I talk about in my sessions like today or my videos, I share it on my podcast. So if you have Spotify, search the School Counselors Lounge and you'll see that. I also have a Facebook group. It's called the Learning Lab. Join it. You can network, get ideas from other people, and just share out what's going on in your program or get ideas. I'll keep this up here for a while, but if you could, please fill out this evaluation. It's a couple simple questions that I would love to get your feedback on, because remember I said you got to get feedback, right? So there's 2 ways you can do it. You can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can type in this link, but it's case sensitive. So it's bit.ly / and then uppercase PSCA. So I'm going to type it in the chat. And you don't have to do the www. You just put bit.ly. If you could go through that at some point throughout your day, give me some feedback. I would greatly appreciate it. And now I want to open the floor up to questions. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear. Anything that you heard in here you want more information about, let me know. I'm an open book. Do I create my own needs assessment or have pre-ones I use? I have a mix. So I've used the same one for a couple years and I kind of revamp it, but you can go on Teachers Pay Teachers, you can go on Google, you can find needs assessments, or you can even use ChatGPT to create some questions, and I use Microsoft Forms or Google Forms. But I have a mix, and I'll even give you an example. I'll give you a link to a needs assessment that you can copy, and you just have to make your own copy. But it's on Google Forms, so if you're not using Google Forms, you can still use it for Microsoft. You just have to copy and create your own Microsoft using the questions. But either way, I'll give you some example questions. Great question. How do I track individual sessions for data? So with that, I have 2 different ways that I do that. One, I have a paper and pencil. I have a planner that I use that I document when students come in, and I don't put like the reason. I put like A for academic, S for SEL. Like, and I have a really good memory, so I can go back and look and see Johnny's name and say, "Oh, I remember what I talked to him for." That's for note taking purposes because there's a whole lot of legal things you can get into with taking a lot of notes. But that's how I track data. And then I also the counseling clerk who helps me. She manages our office. When students come in, they sign in on an iPad, so they put their name, date, and reason why they're visiting, and that's another way that you can use technology to help track your individual sessions. All right, in the high school, my toughest thing is getting teacher buy-in for anything that they need to do. Yeah, that is a struggle, especially in high school because of the way that the schedule is structured in the day. The biggest thing that I would say is at the beginning of the year, sit down with your teachers, go over what your plan is, have an advisory team, have some teachers on your school be part of your advisory community and give you feedback on how this works on your campus, how to get buy-in. And if you can get some of those teachers in your advisory committee to go back and be advocates for you and talk to those teachers who might be a little difficult, sometimes they'll hear it better coming from a peer. So there's a couple different ways to approach how to get buy-in. That's a good question. Do you have any tips for getting your somewhat hesitant counseling team on board or creating and implementing the? So yeah, okay, that's a good question. How to get your teammates on board. The biggest way that I would do is the same way that I shared this session with you all, talking about why we're doing it, how it's going to help our students, how it's going to help us be better educators. Share the rationale. Talk about how to break this down and make it easy for us. Ask them for ideas like, hey, I know this is a lot. What do you let's take this step by step. What do you think you can do specifically? What can you own? And then build from that. So each person can own different parts. Ask them what their strengths are. Figure out how to like divide the work to where where it's not overwhelming. Like if you have somebody who's really good with data, see if they want to like be the data person to help plan it. If you have somebody who's really good with the strategic part, the planning, to break it up in steps. But the big thing is share the need, break it down, and like I mentioned earlier in this session, don't like try to do everything all at once. Break it down your biggest goals and start small and then build up. Okay, we could look. Okay. As a counselor also having administrative experience, how do we suggest we navigate having admin support? Like getting the listener without being annoying when you. Okay. That is a big one, admin support. You can plan all these amazing things, but the biggest thing, and I didn't go into detail with this, but that is a huge one. You have to get admin support. So when you create your needs assessment, when you create your year at a glance, your planner for your events, I always, at the very, very beginning of the year, have a conversation with my school leader. I sit down, I go over the plan, I literally give them visuals. You can either create a presentation. I've done both. I've created a presentation for them with data and the things that I want to do, and I've given them a paper copy of different goals. But you want to get their buy-in and help them understand why you're doing what you're doing, why you chose your goals. And that's the reason why I mentioned earlier, create your goals based on your school improvement plan. Because once you create that based on your school improvement plan, your admin is going to be more, they're not going to be apprehensive because they're going to be like, okay, they're using the data from the school to meet the needs and do what we need to do. So they're going to be on board. Whenever you have an event or an activity, especially school-wide things, you want to get admin support. You want to have an outline of what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, and what's the goal. Share that with them and get their buy-in before you do anything. Even if you're a seasoned counselor or you've been doing this for many years, I would advise you to create a time where you can meet with your admin, whether it's weekly, monthly, whatever, to where you're sharing what you're doing for that month. You're sharing your plan, so you're getting admin buy-in with them. And it doesn't have to be a long thing. And eventually you can do it a lot, like put a lot of effort into it in the beginning, like a lot of planning, create a presentation and stuff. But then once your school leader gets comfortable and familiar with you and trusts you, you may not need as much. Do I have time for one more, Amelia? Okay. How has your school district reacted to your social media presence? That's another thing. I didn't do that on my own. I asked my school leader. I said, this is the idea that I want to have. Because we didn't have an Instagram account at the time. I said, can I create an Instagram where I share tips, resources? can I share little videos? And he said, yes, go for it. I have a very supportive admin team. I come to him with ideas and he's like, go for it. You run your ship. He doesn't give me a whole lot of pushback on anything. He's never has because he trusts me. But again, go with them with a plan. Tell them what the need is, what is your goal, and what is the attended outcome, and then you can that's going to be your big thing. All right, so I really appreciated sharing this time with you all today. I hate that I'm not able to answer more questions, but if you do the survey and you have some questions, if you put your contact information in there, I'll find a way to answer your questions. Or you can reach out to me on Instagram, Counseling with Mr. B, and DM me. I answer my DMs. So I hope that you all have an amazing day. I hope that something in this program resonated with you. Remember, you don't have to do everything all at once, and give yourself grace. If you feel like you haven't been doing these things yet, it's okay. You can start. I always tell ourselves, we talk to our students about having a growth mindset, right? We tell them all the things that they need to do in order to take care of their mental well-being. We got to do the same things. So give yourself grace, start small, and build up. I hope that you all have an amazing conference the rest of the day. And thank you for sharing this time with me, especially early in the morning on a Friday. This was awesome.